Well, it's fair to say that elections around the world are now being won or lost in many cases on social media, and that's not an exaggeration. So let's drill down on the responsibility of social media companies to safeguard the election in this country. We've got one of the biggest social media companies in the chair today, Facebook. It's taken a lot of heat when it comes to protecting democracy, and it's going to be under the microscope again in the October campaign in this country. Kevin Chan is the Global Director and the Head of Public Policy for Canada for Facebook, and he's with me today. Mr. Chan, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in to speak with me. Look, we know that Facebook's taken some of its lumps about foreign interference in different elections around the world and so on. What's your pledge to Canadians in the Canadian election?
Well, I think, like everybody else, we want the same thing. We want a free and fair election in October. And so we're doing our part, making significant investments in a number of fronts to ensure that we kind of do our part to ensure that we do have those kinds of elections.
You've heard a lot of the criticism from politicians in this country about the actions of Facebook. What's your reaction to that Facebook really doesn't care? It's about bottom line. It's not doing enough to protect democracy. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think quite the opposite. In fact, we've been on this path for the last 2 years, making significant investments in people and in technology and in partnerships. To give you some examples, we've tripled the number of security people we have working on these matters at Facebook. So we went from 10,000 to 30,000 people. We've invested significantly in artificial intelligence to be able to try to proactively find all the fake accounts that we know are being used to try to deceive people and sort of perpetuate sort of bad behavior on our platform. And we have significant partnerships. We have partnerships with MediaSmarts in Canada, as well as with Agence France-Presse on third-party fact-checking.
Okay, let's talk about you're now required, as the requirements of new federal election law, creating this registry of political advertising on Facebook. How will it work? What will be different?
Sure. So this law C-76 is actually very important and consequential legislation. It actually regulates online platforms. Mm-hmm. And what it requires us to do is, A, it requires us to make sure that we don't knowingly accept funds from a foreign actor seeking to advertise during the campaign period. It requires us to provide a function for advertisers to label who's paying for the ad. And then third, we have to actually put it into an ad library. So put the political ads in an ad library and we're going to hold it for 7 years.
Some people have said that you can't knowingly accept money from third parties and so on. Why isn't it Facebook's responsibility to find out who's funding you? It does give you an out. The critics say that if the not knowingly part gives you an out on this. Why shouldn't you have to investigate where all the money's coming from?
Well, I'm glad you raised it. Look, this is the will of Parliament that the law be structured that way. Mm-hmm. But we understand, I think, what the criticisms are, right? Which is that if you're a bad actor, you're probably not going to self-declare that you're going to do something bad on the platform.
Right.
And so actually what we've done is we're going to go over and above the law. We have an advisory group of very prominent Canadian leaders. They are going to be advising us on the issues that we think are going to be debated during the election. And using their knowledge and their foresight, we're building in new artificial intelligence systems to proactively try to block bad actors from trying to run ads if they don't self-declare. So I agree with you. In fact, what we're going to do is not only are we going to comply with the law, but we're going to proactively try to stop bad actors who are not going to declare this information to Facebook.
Let's talk about that advertising. Will Facebook reveal who the advertiser is micro-targeting? So in other words, which voters the ad sponsors are trying to reach?
I think, so this is still being built right now, and in fact, our engineers and our product teams are really working right up to the wire, so basically the end of June, to get this done. So I don't have the specifications yet, but I think the intention is to give Canadians as much transparency as possible.
But that's an important thing, isn't it? Because in the past, we've seen organizations manage to find out Facebook's micro-targeting measures, and then Facebook took measures to block that. So their ability to find out who's being micro-targeted, isn't that the ultimate transparency, to be able to tell people, this is why the ad is coming to you. This is why they're after your opinion, or they're putting this in front of you, and this is what they're after.
So another way we're going above and beyond what C-76 requires. So C-76 doesn't require this, right?
No, it doesn't.
It simply just requires you to put this stuff these ads into an ad library. What we want to do is actually give Canadians, as you say, radical transparency into who this ad is reaching. So we're actually going to give you, hopefully, and again, I don't want to sort of be too definitive because we're still building it, but the idea is you're going to be able to see general demographic information about who this ad reached. You're going to get a range in terms of the ad spend. These things, I think, will be helpful, obviously, for Canadians, but I think also for folks like in the media.
But you've said it yourself,
that
general transparency. I'm talking about micro-targeting specifically. Will I be allowed to know exactly who came after me and why, what it is they're after?
So I don't think anybody truly knows the intent of why someone's doing something. So that's something important to underscore.
But I can decide that. If I know who it is and why they came to me, I can probably figure out why they're after me.
And so on Facebook, you already do that. Yeah. You could already do that. We have this thing called ad preferences. And on any ad that you see on Facebook, you can actually click through and you can see why you were in the audience set. You can tell them that you don't ever want to see an ad from that person again. And you can actually also customize and say you only want to receive ads under certain categories.
Okay. You mentioned a little while ago the use of artificial intelligence to help try and weed out the bad actors. This was a problem already, and I want to raise we had the massacre of 50 people in New Zealand streamed online on Facebook, and the artificial intelligence failed to pick that up. My understanding is because it couldn't distinguish the live streaming of a real thing versus a video game. So I guess the challenge becomes, okay, how do we rely on artificial intelligence to be able to decipher who the bad actors are, and how does that happen?
Yeah, when we talk about automated systems, I think there are things that are, it's all relative. So there are certain things that are relatively easy to find, and then there are things that are much harder. So things that are, for example, separating between a good, regular person on Facebook, right, and somebody who is actually a fake account that's masquerading.
Or a botnet, or
like a network of fake accounts.
Right.
It's much easier to make that distinction because real people don't behave the same way as fake accounts on Facebook. And so when you think about artificial intelligence, all it really is pattern recognition, as you're kind of suggesting. Right. So being able to figure out what are the characteristics of a real person on Facebook versus what a fake account is actually relatively easy to do versus content on Facebook that is moving, that has audio, that's constantly being re-edited. That's a much different kind of challenge.
Do you think you're in a position to say that the changes Facebook will make will actually safeguard the Canadian election, that if people are trying to interfere in the election, they won't be able to do it through your platform?
I think our hope is to make it so difficult that if you were a bad actor, you'd probably want to go do something somewhere else. I think what the reality is, this is a security problem. And if you talk to any security expert, the challenge will always be that as we evolve our systems, our adversaries will do the same. So I don't want to ever say and leave your viewers with the impression that our work will ever be done. But we do want to make sure that we are hopefully a few steps ahead and that we make it so difficult for bad actors to try to do anything on the platform that they will seek to do it somewhere where there's less friction.
All right, Kevin Chan from Facebook. Good to talk to you. Hope we get a chance to talk again as the campaign unfolds.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me.